The first punch came without warning, a brutal sucker punch to the ribs that sent her slamming into the lockers. Pain exploded through her side, but Mia Carter didn't cry out. She just wiped the blood from her split lip and smiled. Big mistake. These bullies had no idea who they were dealing with, or that her father had trained her to dismantle armed combatants before she'd even started high school. But something will happen next in this story that you would have never imagined. From which country are you following Mia's journey? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe now, because when the daughter of a Navy SEAL is pushed too far, the fight doesn't end when the bell rings. It ends when she decides it's over. And trust me, you're not ready for what comes next.
The morning air was crisp as Mia Carter stepped off the bus, her boots hitting the cracked pavement with quiet finality. Ridgecrest High loomed before her, a sprawling brick monument to teenage hierarchies and unspoken rules. She adjusted the strap of her backpack, feeling the familiar weight of her father's old field manual pressing against her spine like a silent promise. "Remember," his voice echoed in her memory as clearly as if he were walking beside her. Asterisk, "the battlefield doesn't always look like one, but it's always there." Asterisk. A gust of wind sent fallen leaves skittering across the quad as she approached the main doors. The shouts and laughter of students washed over her, a chaotic symphony of adolescence. Mia kept her breathing even, her posture relaxed but alert, the way her father had taught her during those pre-dawn training sessions back in Virginia. The scent of industrial cleaner and cheap cafeteria food hit her as she entered the building. Lockers slammed like gunshots in the crowded hallway. A group of girls by the water fountain stopped mid-conversation to stare. Mia met their gazes just long enough to see their lips curl into smirks before they turned away, whispering behind manicured hands. Her locker was in the senior wing. A small mercy, fewer prying eyes. She spun the combination, the metal clicking open to reveal empty space. As she began unloading her books, the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. "You must be the new girl." The voice came from her left, dripping with false sweetness. Mia didn't turn immediately, finishing her task before slowly closing the locker door. 3 girls stood in a semicircle, their designer clothes and perfect makeup marking them as top-tier predators in this concrete jungle. The leader, tall, blonde, with cold blue eyes, leaned against the neighboring locker. "Mia, right?" the blonde continued. "I'm Ashley. This is Danielle and Tiffany. We like to welcome all the new students." Mia nodded once. "Noted." Ashley's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Cute. Where are you from, Mia?" "Virginia." "Military brat?" Danielle interjected, eyeing Mia's no-nonsense boots and plain black backpack. Mia felt the familiar tightening in her chest but kept her expression neutral. "Something like that." Ashley pushed off the locker, stepping closer. "Too close. You'll find things work differently here than on whatever base you crawled out of. We have traditions." The warning hung between them. Mia could smell Ashley's expensive perfume, see the barely concealed malice in her carefully lined eyes. "Traditions," Mia repeated flatly. "Yes." Ashley reached out, fingering the sleeve of Mia's jacket. "Like proper introductions. There's a party Friday night at Brandon Lake's house. All the important people will be there." Mia removed Ashley's hand from her jacket with deliberate slowness. "I'll keep that in mind." The hallway had gone quiet around them. Dozens of eyes watched the exchange with barely concealed excitement. Ashley's smile turned brittle. "You should come," she said, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "Unless you'd rather spend your year eating lunch in the bathroom stalls." The bell rang, shattering the moment. Ashley tossed her hair over her shoulder as she turned away. "Think about it, new girl. This is your only invitation." Mia watched them disappear into the throng of students, her fingers flexing unconsciously at her sides. She could still feel the phantom pressure of Ashley's fingers on her sleeve, the unspoken threat hanging in the air like smoke. The day passed in a blur of sidelong glances and hushed conversations. Mia moved through her classes like a ghost, answering when called upon but otherwise maintaining careful silence. By 6th period chemistry, the whispers had grown bolder. "Heard her dad some kind of, probably psycho like all those military kids. Bet she'll crack by Friday." Mia kept her head down, taking meticulous notes as Mr. Henderson droned on about covalent bonds. The scrape of a chair beside her made her glance up. A boy with shaggy brown hair and nervous eyes slid into the seat. "Hey," he muttered, keeping his voice low. "You might want to skip that party." Mia studied him for a moment before responding. "Why's that?" "Just trust me." He glanced over his shoulder before continuing. "Ashley's idea of welcoming isn't exactly." "Jason," Mr. Henderson's voice cut through the room. "Is there something more interesting than stoichiometry you'd like to share with the class?" The boy, Jason, shrank in his seat. "No, sir." Mia returned to her notes, but the warning lingered in her mind. When the final bell rang, she took her time packing up, letting the bulk of the crowd disperse before making her way to the parking lot. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the asphalt. Mia was halfway to the bus stop when the sound of footsteps behind her made her slow. "Hey, new girl." She turned to find Jake Mercer leaning against a pickup truck, his Letterman jacket hanging open to reveal broad shoulders. 3 of his teammates flanked him, their expressions ranging from bored to amused. "We didn't get properly introduced earlier," Jake said, pushing off the truck. I know who you are." Mia kept her hands loose at her sides. Her weight balanced evenly. Jake grinned, all white teeth and confidence. "Good. Then you know how things work around here." He took a step closer, invading her personal space just as Ashley had. "See, we like to make sure new students understand the pecking order." Mia didn't back up. "Is that so?" "Yeah." His grin turned predatory. "And sometimes, we need to make examples." Before she could react, Jake's hand shot out, snatching the strap of her backpack. He yanked hard, sending the bag flying. It hit the pavement with a thud, the contents spilling across the asphalt. Laughter erupted from his friends as Mia's notebook scattered, her pens rolling away. But their amusement died when they saw what else had fallen from the bag. A photograph of Mia standing beside a broad-shouldered man in military dress uniform, the Navy SEAL trident gleaming on his chest. Jake's smile faltered as Mia knelt to retrieve her things. When she stood, something in her posture had changed. Her movements were precise, controlled, dangerous. "You should pick that up," she said quietly, nodding to the photograph still lying on the ground. Jake scoffed. "Or what?" Mia's eyes locked onto his. "Or I'll show you exactly what my father taught me about dealing with bullies." The parking lot fell silent. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. For the first time since she'd arrived at Ridgewood High, Mia saw something like uncertainty flicker across Jake's face. Then, with deliberate slowness, he bent down and picked up the photograph. Mia took it from his hands without breaking eye contact. Smart choice. She turned and walked away, leaving them standing in stunned silence. The sun dipped below the tree lean, casting the school in long shadows as Mia disappeared down the street. Somewhere in the distance, a car backfired, a sound almost like gunfire. And for the first time that day, Mia allowed herself to smile. The photograph burned a hole in Mia's pocket as she walked home, her fingers brushing against it every few steps like a talisman. The fading sunlight painted the suburban streets in shades of orange and gold, but her mind was elsewhere, back in Virginia, on the base where her father had first taught her how to throw a proper punch. "Never start the fight, Mia," he'd said, adjusting her stance in their makeshift backyard dojo. Asterisk, "but you better damn well finish it." Asterisk. A car horn jerked her back to the present. She turned down Maple Street, where the houses grew farther apart and the sidewalks cracked with neglect. The Carter residence stood at the end of the cul-de-sac, a modest two-story with a faded American flag hanging limply from the porch. The smell of garlic and onions hit her as she opened the front door. Her father stood at the stove, his massive frame dwarfing the tiny kitchen. Master Chief Darius Carter moved with the same precision in cooking as he did in combat, every chop, every stir deliberate. "School okay?" he asked without turning around. Mia dropped her backpack by the stairs. It was educational. That made him turn. His dark eyes, mirror images of her own, scanned her face like he was reading a battlefield report. After a long moment, he nodded and went back to stirring. "Dinner in 20. Go wash up." Upstairs, Mia locked her bedroom door before pulling out her phone. 3 texts from unknown numbers lit up the screen. "You think you are tough, bitch? Asterisk Friday's gonna be fun. Smiley face. Hope you are dad teaches you how to cry too." She deleted them without reply and opened her bottom dresser drawer. Beneath a stack of sweaters lay her father's old field notebook, dog-eared pages filled with sketches of chokeholds, pressure points, and escape maneuvers. She traced the faded ink with her finger, hearing his voice in her head. Asterisk, the body fails before the mind does. Remember that. Asterisk. A knock at her door made her slam the drawer shut. Yeah. Phone, her dad said through the wood. It's your mother. Mia took a steadying breath before opening the door. Her father held out the cordless handset, his expression unreadable. Hey Mom, Mia said, forcing lightness into her voice. Mia baby. Her mother's voice crackled through the line, tinny with distance. How was your first day? Make any friends? Mia watched her father retreat down the hallway, his shoulders tense. It was fine, she said. Just like every other first day. The lie tasted bitter. This wasn't like the other schools, the temporary bases where everyone understood the unspoken rules of military life. Ridgewood High was different. These kids didn't know what it meant to have a parent deploy for months at a time. They'd never had to learn how to break down a rifle before they could ride a bike. Her mother prattled on about her new job in D.C., the apartment search, when she might visit next. Mia made the right noises in response, but her mind was already back at school, on Jake's face when he saw that photograph, on Ashley's thinly veiled threats. After hanging up, she found her father at the kitchen table, polishing his service pistol with methodical strokes. He didn't look up as she sat across from him. They giving you trouble? He asked quietly. Mia shrugged. The usual. The cloth paused on the barrel. You handle it? For now. He nodded, satisfied, and went back to cleaning. They ate dinner in comfortable silence. Spaghetti with homemade marinara, a recipe he'd learned from a Sicilian sniper during his second tour. As Mia washed the dishes, her phone buzzed again. A new message, this time from Jason, the boy from chemistry class. Asterisk, they're planning something for tomorrow. Be careful. Asterisk. She dried her hands slowly, watching her reflection warp in the stainless steel faucet. Outside, the streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows across the backyard where she trained since she was old enough to throw a punch. Somewhere in the darkness, a dog barked. The wind picked up, rattling the kitchen window. Mia Carter smiled. Let them come. The morning air carried a chill as Mia stepped off the bus, her breath forming small clouds in front of her face. The school loomed ahead, its windows reflecting the pale dawn light like dull eyes watching her approach. She adjusted the straps of her backpack, feeling the familiar weight of her father's old field manual pressing against her spine. The whispers started before she even reached the front steps. That's her. Heard she threatened Jake yesterday. Wait till Ashley finds out. Mia kept her expression neutral, her strides measured, and even as she pushed through the front doors. The hallway smelled of bleach and cheap body spray, the linoleum floors still slightly sticky from yesterday's mopping. She could feel eyes tracking her movement as she made her way to her locker, the usual morning chatter dipping slightly as she passed. Her locker door squeaked when she opened it. Inside, someone had taped a handwritten note. Welcome to Ridgewood, bitch. Mia peeled it off carefully, folded it in half, and slipped it into her pocket without reading the rest. She'd expected something like this. Maybe not so soon, but expected nonetheless. First period passed without incident. Mia took careful notes in Algebra 2, ignoring the occasional glances from the girls 2 rows over. Their whispers carried just enough for her to catch snippets. Asterisk. Think she's tough. Military freak. Show her. Asterisk. But she kept her focus on the equations in front of her. The real test came at lunch. The cafeteria roared with conversation, the clatter of trays and silverware creating a chaotic symphony. Mia stood in line, selecting a carton of milk and a turkey sandwich before scanning the room for a place to sit. Every table might as well have had invisible barriers. Groups of friends huddled together, their body language closing ranks as she passed. At the far end of the room, Ashley and her friends held court at their usual table, their laughter a little too loud as Mia approached. The empty seat at Jason's table near the back seemed like the best option. He looked up in surprise when she set her tray down across from him. You shouldn't sit here, he muttered, eyes darting toward Ashley's table. Mia unwrapped her sandwich. Why not? Before he could answer, A shadow fell across their table. Jake Mercer stood over them, his Letterman jacket unzipped to reveal a muscle shirt underneath. His usual entourage flanked him, their expressions ranging from bored to amused. "This seat's taken," Jake said, slapping his palm down on the table hard enough to make Jason flinch. Mia took a slow sip of milk before responding. "Doesn't look taken to me." Jake's smile didn't reach his eyes. He leaned in closer, close enough that Mia could smell the cheap cologne clinging to his skin. "Listen, new girl. You don't want to make an enemy of me." Mia set her milk carton down carefully. "I don't." The cafeteria had gone quiet around them. Even the lunch monitors had stopped pretending not to watch. Jake's face darkened. He grabbed Mia's tray and flipped it over, sending her food crashing to the floor. Milk splattered across the linoleum, the sandwich landing face down in the mess. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Mia looked at the ruined lunch, then back up at Jake. She didn't stand, didn't raise her voice. When she spoke, her words carried clearly in the sudden silence. "Pick it up." Jake laughed, glancing at his friends for support. "Or what?" Mia pushed her chair back slowly and stood. She wasn't tall. Jake had at least 6 inches on her, but something in her posture made him take an involuntary step back. "Last chance," she said quietly. The tension stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Jake's grin wavered, his confidence faltering under her steady gaze. For a moment, it looked like he might actually bend down. Then Ashley's voice cut through the silence. "Jake, baby, don't waste your time." She sauntered over, her designer jeans hugging her hips, her lips curled in a smirk. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. "Let's go," she said, looping her arm through Jake's. "She's not worth it." Jake hesitated, his pride warring with the unease Mia's calm demeanor had planted in his gut. Finally, he let Ashley lead him away, throwing one last glare over his shoulder. The cafeteria exploded in whispers as they left. Mia righted her tray and began gathering the ruined remains of her lunch. Jason knelt beside her, his hands shaking as he picked up the milk carton. "You shouldn't have done that," he whispered. Mia wiped sandwich crumbs off her jeans. "Someone had to." The bell rang, scattering students to their next classes. As Mia stood, she caught Ashley watching her from across the room, her blue eyes calculating. This wasn't over. If anything, it had just begun. The afternoon passed in a blur of sidelong glances and hushed conversations. Mia moved through her classes like a ghost, present but untouched, her calm exterior giving nothing away. By the time final bell rang, the school hummed with anticipation. Everyone knew something was coming, they just didn't know when. Mia took her time packing up, letting the halls clear before making her way to the parking lot. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the asphalt, the air thick with the promise of approaching autumn. She was halfway to the bus stop when the first rock hit the pavement at her feet. Mia stopped walking. Another rock sailed past, this one clipping her backpack with a soft thud. She turned slowly to face the group emerging from behind the dumpsters. Jake and 3 of his friends, their expressions a mix of bravado and nervous energy. "Lost new girl," Jake taunted, cracking his knuckles. Mia adjusted her backpack straps. "Nope." One of Jake's friends, a lanky kid with acne scars, stepped forward. "We think you need to learn some respect." Mia sized them up with a quick glance. Jake was the biggest threat, but the other 3 looked like they'd throw a punch if ordered to. She shifted her weight slightly, her father's training running through her mind like a mantra. Asterisk assess. Adapt. Overcome. Asterisk. Jake took another step closer. "You're gonna apologize for embarrassing me today." Mia tilted her head. Or we make you." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with promise. Somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed. A crow cawed from the school roof. Mia smiled. "Try it." Jake swung first, a wild haymaker meant to intimidate more than connect. Mia ducked under it easily, pivoting on her back foot as her father had taught her. Her counterpunch landed just below his ribs, driving the air from his lungs with a satisfying whoosh. As Jake doubled over, his friends hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. Mia moved like water, flowing between them, her strikes precise and economical. A palm strike to the nose here, an elbow to the solar plexus there. Within 30 seconds, all 4 boys were on the ground, groaning. Mia adjusted her shirt, barely winded. She crouched next to Jake, who was clutching his stomach, his face pale with shock. "Here's your apology," she said quietly. "I'm sorry you're too stupid to know when to quit." Standing, she shouldered her backpack and walked away, leaving them sprawled on the pavement. The setting sun painted the school in shades of orange and red as she turned the corner, her shadow stretching long behind her. Word would spread fast after this, and Mia would be ready. The morning air smelled like rain as Mia walked to school, her knuckles still slightly tender from yesterday's altercation. She flexed her fingers absently, feeling the faint ache in the joints, a reminder that no matter how well trained you were, flesh still bruised when it hit bone. The school parking lot was unusually quiet for a Friday morning. A few students lingered by their cars, their conversations dying as Mia passed. The whispers followed her all the way to the front doors. Heard she took down 4 guys. Jake couldn't even stand up after. Crazy military bitch. The principal's office found her before first period. "Mia Carter?" The secretary stood in the classroom doorway, her expression carefully neutral. "Principal Hendricks would like to see you." The walk to the office felt like moving through a dream. Students pressed against lockers to let her pass, their eyes wide with something between fear and fascination. Someone snapped a picture with their phone. Mia kept her gaze straight ahead, her breathing even. Principal Hendricks' office smelled like lemon cleaner and old paperwork. The man himself sat behind a cluttered desk, his bald head gleaming under fluorescent lights. Vice Principal Greeley stood by the window, her arms crossed over a navy blazer. "Sit," Hendricks said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Mia sat. "We've received some concerning reports," he began, steepling his fingers, "about an altercation after school yesterday." Mia said nothing. Hendricks sighed. "For students claim you assaulted them." "4. Mia raised an eyebrow. "That's interesting math." Greeley stepped forward. "This isn't a joke, Miss Carter. Jake Mercer is in the hospital with bruised ribs." Mia leaned back in her chair. "And did Jake mention why he needed 4 friends to confront 1 girl?" The adults exchanged glances. Hendricks opened a folder on his desk. "Your records from Virginia mention behavioral issues." Mia's jaw tightened. "My records mention defending myself against 3 seniors who thought the new girl would be an easy target." The room fell silent. Greeley's mouth pressed into a thin line. Hendricks rubbed his temples. "Here's what's going to happen," he said finally. "You're suspended for 3 days. When you return, you'll have weekly meetings with Counselor Davis." Mia stood. "Is that all?" Hendricks looked up, surprised by her calm. "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Mia met his gaze evenly. "Only that next time, I won't wait for them to throw the first punch." The walk back through the empty hallway felt longer than before. Mia's footsteps echoed off the lockers as she made her way to the front office to collect her suspension paperwork. The secretary handed her a manila envelope without meeting her eyes. "Your father will need to sign this." Mia tucked it under her arm. "He will." The rain had started by the time she pushed through the front doors, a cold, steady drizzle that matched her mood perfectly. She was halfway down the steps when a voice called out behind her. "Hey!" Jason stood under the awning, his backpack slung over one shoulder. His brown hair was damp from the rain, sticking to his forehead in messy strands. "You okay?" he asked. Mia adjusted the envelope under her arm. "Why wouldn't I be?" Jason glanced back at the school before stepping closer. "They're saying all kinds of crazy stuff about you." "I'm sure. Ashley's pissed." He lowered his voice. "Like, really pissed. She's got people talking about..." He trailed off, shaking his head. Mia waited. Jason swallowed hard. "Just watch your back, okay?" Mia studied him for a long moment, the nervous way he shifted his weight, the genuine concern in his eyes. She nodded once. "Thanks." The rain fell harder as she walked away, soaking through her jacket within minutes. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled, a low, ominous growl. Mia smiled into the storm. "Let them come." The rhythmic thud of Mia's fists against the heavy bag filled the garage, each strike precise and controlled. Sweat dripped down her temples despite the autumn chill creeping through the cracked windows. She'd been at it for 2 hours straight, ever since returning from school with the suspension notice tucked in her back pocket. The bag swung violently as she landed a spinning back kick, the chains holding it creaking in protest. Her father had installed it years ago, back when she'd first expressed interest in learning self-defense. Back when he still thought he could protect her from the world. The garage door rattled open, flooding the space with gray afternoon light. Master Chief Darius Carter stood silhouetted in the doorway, his broad shoulders blocking most of the frame. He didn't speak at first, just watched as Mia delivered 3 rapid punches to the bag. Left, right, left, before catching it with both hands to still the motion. "You gonna tell me what happened?" His voice was calm, the same tone he used when briefing his team before a mission. Mia unwrapped her hands, the tape sticky with sweat. "Got suspended. I got a call from Hendricks." Her father stepped fully into the garage, letting the door close behind him. The scent of gun oil and leather followed him, clinging to his clothes like a second skin. "Says you put 3 boys in the hospital." 4, Mia corrected, tossing the used tape into the trash can. "And it was more like urgent care than a hospital." The corner of Darius's mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. He leaned against the workbench, arms crossed over his chest. "Start from the beginning." Mia told him everything. The locker room taunts, the cafeteria confrontation, the ambush after school. Her father listened without interrupting, his expression giving nothing away. When she finished, he pushed off the bench and walked to the heavy bag, running a hand over the worn leather. "Your form's gotten sloppy," he said finally. Mia blinked. "What?" "Your right hook." He demonstrated the motion slowly. "You're dropping your shoulder too early. Leaves you open for a counter." She stared at him. "That's all you have to say?" Darius turned to face her fully. "What do you want me to say, Mia? That you shouldn't have defended yourself? That you should have let those kids walk all over you?" He shook his head. "I didn't raise you to be a victim." The tension in Mia's shoulders eased slightly. "Hendricks wants you to sign the suspension papers." "I'll sign them." Her father picked up a roll of hand tape from the bench, turning it over in his hands. "But here's what's going to happen next. Those kids, they're not done. People like that, they can't stand being embarrassed. Especially not by someone they see as beneath them." Mia nodded, having already come to the same conclusion herself. "You've got 3 days before you go back." Darius tossed her the tape. "We're going to use them." For the first time since the fight, Mia smiled. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of training and strategy sessions. Her father ran her through scenario after scenario. Multiple attackers, weapons, ambush situations. They reviewed footage of street fights, analyzing every mistake, every missed opportunity. On the second night, as Mia iced her bruised knuckles at the kitchen table, her father slid a manila folder across to her. Inside were printed social media posts, screenshots from Ashley's private Instagram, messages between Jake and his friends, all discussing retaliation. "Jason sent these," Darius said, sipping his black coffee. "Kids got decent OPSEC for a civilian." Mia studied the posts, her stomach tightening. Ashley wasn't just planning revenge. She was orchestrating a spectacle. There were mentions of a party, of putting the military bitch in her place. The comments underneath were worse. "You don't have to go back," her father said quietly. "We can transfer you. Fresh start." Mia closed the folder. "No." Darius studied her face for a long moment before nodding. "Then we prepare." The morning of her return to school dawned cold and clear. Mia dressed carefully. Sturdy jeans, combat boots, a fitted long-sleeve shirt that allowed for freedom of movement. She tucked her hair into a tight bun and studied herself in the mirror. The girl staring back looked older somehow, her eyes harder than they'd been just a week ago. Her father was waiting by the front door, car keys in hand. "Ready." Mia grabbed her backpack, heavier than usual with the extra weight of her father's old tactical manual. "Let's go." The ride to school was quiet. When they pulled up to the front gates, Darius put the car in park but didn't turn off the engine. "Remember," he said, his voice low and steady, "the strongest weapon you have isn't your fists. It's here." He tapped his temple. "And here." His hand moved to his chest, over his heart. Mia nodded, gripping the door handle. Keep your phone on you. If things go south. I know the drill. For a brief moment, her father's stern expression softened. I'm proud of you, kid. The words settled over Mia like armor. She stepped out of the car and into the gauntlet. The school courtyard was unnaturally quiet as she approached. Students clustered in small groups, their conversations dying as she passed. The air hummed with tension, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Mia kept her head high, her stride confident as she pushed through the front doors. The hallway ahead was lined with students, some openly staring, others pretending not to notice her. At the far end, near her locker, Ashley held court with her usual entourage. They decorated Mia's locker. The word "freak" was spray-painted across the metal in jagged red letters. Below it, someone had taped up torn pages from what looked like a military pamphlet. Images of soldiers, weapons, all defaced with crude drawings. Mia walked right up to it, ignoring the whispers spreading through the crowd. She ran her fingers over the dried paint before turning to face Ashley. Creative, Mia said, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. But you misspelled coward. Ashley's smile faltered. Enjoy your suspension, psycho? Mia shrugged. Got some good training in. She glanced pointedly at Jake, who stood slightly behind Ashley, his ribs still taped beneath his shirt. How are the ribs, Jake? Breathing okay? The crowd collectively held its breath. Ashley's cheeks flushed red. You think you're so tough. I don't think, Mia interrupted. I know. She took a step closer, lowering her voice so only Ashley could hear. And here's what else I know. You're scared. Because for the first time in your life, you've met someone who isn't afraid of you. Ashley's breath hitched. For a split second, Mia saw it. Real fear, raw and unmasked, before the girl's usual sneer snapped back into place. This isn't over, Ashley hissed. Mia smiled. I'm counting on it. The first bell rang, scattering students to their classes. As the crowd dispersed, Mia turned back to her vandalized locker. She peeled off one of the taped-up pictures, a photo of a Navy SEAL in full gear. Someone had drawn a target over his face. She folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. Then she went to class. The fluorescent lights of the classroom buzzed overhead as Mia took her usual seat in the back. The whispers started before the bell even rang, hushed voices passing rumors back and forth like a toxic game of telephone. Heard she broke Jake's ribs with one punch. My brother says her dad's some kind of assassin. Psycho bitch should be in juvie. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat at the front of the room, his tired eyes scanning the class. Open your textbooks to page 142. Today we're covering the Civil War's turning points. Mia kept her expression neutral as she flipped through the book. The pages blurred slightly as her eyes refused to focus. Every nerve in her body was on high alert, hyper-aware of the hostile energy pressing in from all sides. A folded note landed on her desk with a soft tap. She waited until Mr. Henderson turned to write on the board before opening it. The handwriting was messy, rushed. Asterisk, meet me in the library after third period. Jason. Asterisk. Mia crumpled the note and tucked it into her pocket. Across the room, Jason kept his head down, pretending to be engrossed in his textbook. The library was nearly empty when Mia pushed through the glass doors. Rain pattered against the high windows, casting watery shadows across the stacks. Jason sat at a corner table, his fingers drumming anxiously against the wood. He looked up as Mia approached, his eyes darting to the librarian before speaking in a hushed voice. You shouldn't have provoked Ashley this morning. Mia slid into the chair opposite him. You're the one who left me a note. Jason leaned forward, his breath smelling faintly of mint gum. They're planning something big. Like really big. He pulled out his phone and swiped to a group chat. See for yourself. Mia scanned the messages. The chat was titled Operation Payback, with a skull emoji. The plans were fragmented across dozens of messages. Mentions of the homecoming game, something about the locker rooms, a blurred photo of what looked like the school's boiler room. They've been talking about it since you got suspended, Jason whispered. Ashley's dad donated like 50 grand to the football team. The coaches won't stop anything that happens to you. Mia handed the phone back. Why are you telling me this? Jason's cheeks flushed. Because it's not right. He swallowed hard. And because I know what it's like to be their target. For the first time, Mia noticed the faint scar above his right eyebrow, a thin white line nearly hidden by his hair. The warning bell rang, startling them both. Jason shoved his phone in his pocket. Just be careful, okay? Mia stood, adjusting her backpack. Thanks for the heads up. The ambush came after lunch. Mia was washing her hands in the girls' bathroom when the door burst open. 3 girls filed in, Danielle, Tiffany, and a junior Mia didn't recognize. Danielle slammed the lock on the door while Tiffany turned on all the sinks full blast. Ashley wants to talk to you, Danielle said, her smile all teeth. Mia shook water from her hands. She could have just texted. The junior, a heavy-set girl with cold eyes, stepped forward. We're your escort. Mia calculated the distances between them, the angles of attack. She could take them, probably, but not without making noise. And fighting in a bathroom would mean hair-pulling, scratching, all the messy techniques that left marks. Lead the way, she said. They marched her through the empty hallways, down a flight of stairs, and into the basement level where the boiler room hummed behind a heavy metal door. Danielle produced a key and swung it open with a dramatic flourish. The smell of mildew and industrial cleaner washed over them as they stepped inside. Ashley stood in the center of the concrete-floored room, her designer jeans swapped for workout leggings, her blonde hair tied back in a tight ponytail. Jake leaned against a stack of storage crates, his arms crossed over his still-taped ribs. 5 other guys loitered around the room, football players from the look of them. Mia counted exits. 1 door, no windows. The boiler itself took up most of the far wall, its pipes hissing faintly. Thanks for coming, Ashley said, her voice sweet as poison. We wanted to have a little private chat. Mia kept her hands loose at her sides. Chat away. Ashley circled her like a shark. See, here's the thing. You come into our school, act like you own the place, put your hands on our people. She stopped directly in front of Mia. That can't stand. Mia didn't blink. Your people started it, and we're going to finish it. Ashley nodded to someone behind Mia. The first blow came from the side, a fist to the kidney that sent fire lancing up Mia's spine. She twisted with the impact, using the momentum to drive her elbow into her attacker's throat. He gagged and stumbled back. Then the room erupted. Fists flew from all directions. Mia moved like liquid, blocking, striking, pivoting, but there were too many of them. A punch grazed her temple, making lights dance across her vision. Someone grabbed her hair from behind, yanking hard enough to bring tears to her eyes. Through the chaos, she saw Jake approaching, something metallic glinting in his hand. The taser crackled to life with a sickening buzz. Mia reacted on instinct. She dropped her weight suddenly, surprising the girl holding her hair, and drove backward with all her strength. They crashed into a shelving unit, sending boxes raining down around them. The distraction gave her 2 seconds, just enough time to lunge for the fire extinguisher mounted by the door. The canister came free with a metallic shriek. Mia swung it in a wide arc, catching Jake across the jaw with a satisfying crunch. He went down hard, the taser skittering across the floor. Silence fell like a guillotine. Ashley stood frozen, her eyes wide as they darted from Mia to the unconscious Jake to the fire extinguisher now dripping foam onto the concrete. Mia wiped blood from her split lip. Still want to finish this? The door burst open. Principal Hendricks stood framed in the doorway, his face purple with rage. Behind him, Vice Principal Greeley gaped at the scene. The unconscious student, the scattered weapons, the blood smeared across the floor. What in God's name is going on here? Hendricks roared. Mia dropped the fire extinguisher with a clang. Self-defense, she said simply. The fluorescent lights in the principal's office hummed like angry wasps as Mia sat stiff-backed in the plastic chair. The cut on her lip had stopped bleeding, but the metallic taste still lingered in her mouth. Across the desk, Principal Hendricks shuffled through incident reports, his glasses sliding down his sweaty nose every few minutes. The police officer, a tired-looking woman with salt and pepper hair, leaned against the filing cabinet, her notepad open but untouched. Officer Delaney, her badge red. She'd been silent since arriving, letting Hendricks take the lead. We have 7 students in the nurse's office, Hendricks said, slapping the papers down. one with a possible concussion, 2 with broken noses, and Jake Mercer's jaw is fractured in 2 places. Mia kept her hands folded in her lap, her father's voice echoing in her mind. Asterisk, don't explain. Don't apologize. State facts. Asterisk. They attacked me first, she said. There were 9 of them. Hendrix's jowls quivered. And yet you're the only one walking away relatively unharmed. Mia touched her split lip. Relatively. The door burst open before Hendrix could respond. Darius Carter filled the doorway, his military ID still clipped to his belt from whatever base he'd rushed here from. His eyes locked onto Mia's face first, scanning her injuries with clinical precision before turning to Hendrix. Explain. That single word carried the weight of a thunderclap. Hendrix visibly shrank in his chair. Mr. Carter, your daughter. Master Chief Carter, Darius corrected coldly. And I believe I asked for an explanation. Officer Delaney finally spoke up. There was an altercation in the boiler room. Multiple students were injured. Darius didn't even glance her way. Who started it? Hendrix opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched. Mia reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen a few times before sliding it across the desk. The video played clearly, Ashley's voice saying, "We're going to finish it," the first punch landing, the taser buzzing to life. Hendrix paled. Where did you? Jason Reed filmed it through the vent, Mia said. He sent it to me 5 minutes ago. Officer Delaney picked up the phone, studying the footage with a professional eye. This changes things. Changes things. Darius's voice dropped to a dangerous register. My daughter was lured into a basement and assaulted by 9 students, one of whom was armed with an illegal weapon. And you're saying this changes things? Hendrix mopped his brow with a handkerchief. There will of course be an investigation. There will be lawsuits, Darius corrected. Against the school for negligence. Against the parents of every student involved for attempted grievous bodily harm. And personally, against you, Principal Hendrix, for your documented history of turning a blind eye to bullying in this institution. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Officer Delaney cleared her throat. Mia, can you come to the station to give a formal statement? With this video evidence, we're looking at felony assault charges against several of these students. Mia looked at her father. He gave an almost imperceptible nod. I'll come, she said. The news spread through Ridgewood High like wildfire. By the time Mia and her father left the police station, after 3 hours of statements and evidence logging, the school's social media was in meltdown. Ashley's father, a prominent local attorney, had already lawyered up. Jake's parents were threatening to sue the school for failing to protect their son. And in the middle of it all, Jason Reed had gone public with years of documentation about the bullying culture at Ridgewood. Mia sat at the kitchen table that evening, an ice pack pressed to her swollen lip, watching the local news coverage on her laptop. Shocking footage has led to calls for Principal Hendrix's resignation. Parents demanding accountability from school administrators. Questions raised about why previous complaints were ignored. Her father set a mug of hot tea in front of her. How's the lip? Better. Mia muted the news. They're not talking about the real problem. Darius sat across from her. Which is? That this happens everywhere, Mia said. Ridgewood just got caught. Her father studied her for a long moment. You did good today. Mia blinked. I got in another fight. You stood your ground. You kept your head. And you brought down an entire system of corruption in the process. He raised his own mug. That's not just good. That's elite. The doorbell rang. Darius frowned and went to answer it. Mia heard muffled voices. Then her father returned with Jason in tow. The boy looked like he hadn't slept in days, his hair sticking up in every direction. Hey, he said awkwardly. I just wanted to. Are you okay? Mia gestured to the chair beside her. Sit. Jason did, his knees bouncing nervously. They suspended Ashley and Jake. Pending investigation. Some of the others too. Darius leaned against the counter. You're the one who filmed it? Jason nodded, his throat bobbing. I followed when I saw them leading Mia away. I figured someone should have proof. Mia studied him. The nervous energy, the bruised knuckles from where he'd probably punched a wall in frustration, the determined set to his jaw. "Why now?" Jason met her gaze. "Because you were the first person who ever fought back." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Darius cleared his throat. "You staying for dinner, Jason?" The boy blinked. Mia nudged the cookie jar toward him. "We're ordering pizza." A slow smile spread across Jason's face. "Yeah, okay." Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall, blanketing the world in quiet. Inside, 3 unlikely allies sat around a kitchen table, the scent of brewing tea and possibility hanging in the air. The war wasn't over. But for the first time, Mia wasn't fighting alone. The morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, casting long rectangles of gold across the linoleum floor. Mia sat at the table, scrolling through the latest news articles on her phone. The Ridgewood High scandal had made state headlines now, with reporters digging into years of overlooked bullying incidents and administrative negligence. Her father set a plate of scrambled eggs in front of her, the steam curling upward in lazy spirals. "Eat," he said. "You're going to need your strength today." Mia set her phone down and picked up her fork. "They want to interview me." Darius paused mid-pour, his coffee cup hovering over the table. "Who does?" Channel 7 News. The Tribune. Some podcast called Breaking the Cycle. She pushed her eggs around the plate. "Jason's already done 3 interviews." The coffee cup landed with a soft thud. "You don't have to talk to anyone you don't want to." "I know." Mia finally took a bite, the eggs tasting like cardboard in her mouth. "But if I don't tell my side, someone else will." Her father studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Then we do it on our terms." The school parking lot was packed with news vans when they arrived. Camera crews clustered near the entrance, their bright lights turning the gray morning artificial. Mia tightened her grip on her backpack as she stepped out of the car. A reporter spotted her first. Mia Carter. How do you feel about Principal Hendrix's resignation?" More cameras swung toward her. Microphones appeared like weapons, thrust into her personal space. Darius moved like a shadow, placing himself between Mia and the onslaught. No comment at this time. They made it inside to relative quiet. The usual morning chaos was subdued, students whispering in corners instead of shouting across the halls. Every head turned as Mia walked past. Jason appeared at her locker, his eyes bloodshot but alert. "You okay?" Mia spun her combination. "Been better." "They're calling an assembly third period," he said, keeping his voice low. "New interim principal wants to address the whole school." Mia slammed her locker shut a little harder than necessary. "Should be interesting." The auditorium buzzed with nervous energy as the entire student body filed in. Mia took a seat near the back, Jason beside her. Ashley's usual clique was conspicuously absent, though Mia spotted Jake in the far corner, his jaw wired shut, his eyes burning with hatred. The new interim principal, a tall black woman with close-cropped hair and a no-nonsense expression, stepped up to the podium. The microphone screeched feedback before she adjusted it. "My name is Dr. Evelyn Wright," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly through the room. "As of this morning, I am your acting principal." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Dr. Wright didn't wait for silence. What happened at this school was a failure at every level. A failure of leadership, a failure of accountability, and most of all, a failure of basic human decency. The room went still. Starting today, things change. She gripped the podium. Every reported bullying incident will be investigated. Every student will have access to anonymous reporting. And every adult in this building will be held responsible for your safety. Mia felt something unclench in her chest. Jason leaned over. "Think she means it?" Before Mia could answer, Dr. Wright continued. "There's one more thing." She looked up, her gaze scanning the crowd until it landed unerringly on Mia. "We're forming a student-led anti-bullying task force. Applications are available in the office." The bell rang, but no one moved. Dr. Wright nodded once. "Dismissed." The hallway outside the auditorium was chaos. Students buzzing about the assembly, the new rules, the task force. Mia was halfway to her next class when a hand grabbed her elbow. She turned to face Jake Mercer. Up close, the damage was worse. His jaw mottled purple and yellow, his left eye still swollen shut. He released her arm and held up his phone, typing with his thumbs before showing her the screen. "This isn't over." Mia met his good eye. "It is for you." She walked away, leaving him standing there, his rage as impotent as his threats. Jason caught up to her at the water fountain. "You applying for that task force?" Mia took a long drink before answering. "Thinking about it." "Good." Jason adjusted his glasses. "Because I already did." For the first time in weeks, Mia felt something like hope flicker to life in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, something good could come from all this pain. The first meeting of Ridgewood High's anti-bullying task force was held in the library after school. The round tables usually reserved for study groups had been pushed together to form a makeshift conference area. Mia arrived early, taking a seat near the window where she could watch the late afternoon sunlight filter through the dusty blinds. Dr. Wright entered precisely at 3:15, her heels clicking against the linoleum. She carried a stack of folders under one arm and a coffee mug that read, "World's Okayest Principle," in the other. "Thank you all for coming," she said, setting her things down at the head of the table. "You've been chosen for this task force because you've each shown remarkable courage in the face of adversity." Mia glanced around at the other students, a mix of familiar and unfamiliar faces. Jason sat 2 seats to her left, fidgeting with his pencil. Across the table was Marcus Chen, a quiet junior who'd been bullied for his stutter. Beside him sat Leticia Gomez, whose viral TikTok about cafeteria harassment had helped bring attention to the school's problems. Dr. Wright passed out the folders. "Inside you'll find our proposed action plan. Read it over, then we'll discuss." Mia flipped hers open. The first page contained sobering statistics, reported bullying incidents from the past 5 years, disciplinary actions taken or not taken, student transfer requests. The numbers told a story of systemic failure. Jason was the first to speak. "These can't be right. Only 3 suspensions for bullying last year." "That's documented cases," Dr. Wright corrected. "Most incidents were never formally reported." Leticia scoffed. "Because reporting did nothing. The teachers would just tell us to work it out, or blame both sides." Mia traced a finger down the incident log. Her own altercation with Jake and Ashley wasn't listed. Too recent, probably. But she recognized other names, other victims. "What exactly can we do?" Marcus asked, his voice quiet but steady. "We're just kids." Dr. Wright leaned forward. "You're not just anything. You're the ones who live this every day. You know where the blind spots are, which teachers look the other way, which parts of the building aren't monitored." She tapped the folder. "Help us fix it." For the next hour, they brainstormed, suggestion boxes in every hallway, a student-run support hotline, mandatory training for teachers on spotting covert bullying. Mia found herself speaking up more than she'd expected, offering insights from her time at various military schools where hierarchies were just as rigid but more openly acknowledged. As the meeting wrapped up, Dr. Wright assigned roles. Jason would handle social media outreach. Leticia would design promotional materials. Marcus, despite his initial hesitation, agreed to help draft new reporting procedures. "Mia," Dr. Wright said, "I'd like you to lead our mentorship program, pairing upperclassmen with incoming freshmen to help them navigate Ridgewood's social challenges." Mia blinked. "Why me?" "Because," Dr. Wright said simply, "you're someone who fights back. Others need to learn how." The weight of the responsibility settled over Mia like a heavy coat. She thought of all the times she'd wished for guidance, for someone to show her the rules of this strange civilian battlefield. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it." The next morning, Mia arrived early to hang posters advertising the new anonymous reporting system. The halls were still empty, the only sound the squeak of her sneakers against freshly waxed floors. She was taping up the third poster when a voice behind her said, "Those won't last a day." Mia turned to find Jake Mercer leaning against a locker, his jaw still wired shut but healing. He'd lost weight since the fight, his Letterman jacket hanging looser on his frame. She went back to her work. "Then I'll put up new ones." Jake stepped closer. He smelled like antiseptic and cheap cologne. When Mia ignored him, He pulled out his phone and typed something before showing her the screen. "You ruined everything." Mia met his gaze. "No, Jake. You did that all by yourself." For a long moment, they stood there in silent confrontation. Then Jake's eyes flicked to something over Mia's shoulder, and he stiffened. Mia turned to see Dr. Wright watching them from the end of the hallway, her arms crossed. Jake shoved his phone in his pocket and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty hall. Dr. Wright approached. "Everything all right?" Mia smoothed the poster's edges. "Just a friendly chat." The principal hummed skeptically but let it go. "I've arranged for you to speak at next week's freshman orientation. Give them some tips on standing up for themselves." Mia's stomach twisted. Public speaking wasn't exactly her forte. "You sure I'm the right person for that?" Dr. Wright adjusted one of Mia's crooked posters. "Who better than someone who's been through it?" She patted Mia's shoulder. "Think about what you wish someone had told you on your first day." As the principal walked away, Mia stared at the freshly hung poster, bold letters proclaiming, "See something? Say something," and wondered if it would have made a difference for her. Maybe not, but it might for someone else. The mentorship program launched the following Monday. Mia stood in the gymnasium before 50 wide-eyed freshmen, her palms sweating against the podium. The scent of nervous adolescence and stale basketballs filled the air. Jason gave her an encouraging nod from the front row. Mia took a deep breath. "My name is Mia Carter. Some of you might have heard about me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Yeah," Mia continued, "I'm the one who got suspended for fighting. But what you probably haven't heard is why." She gripped the sides of the podium. "I fought back." The gym went silent. For those of you who are scared right now, scared of the older kids, the rumors, the pressure to fit in, I get it. But here's what I wish someone had told me: you don't have to take it. She stepped out from behind the podium, making eye contact with as many freshmen as possible. There's a new system now. Anonymous reporting. Teachers who actually listen. Upperclassmen like me who will have your back. Mia paused. But the most important thing, knowing your own worth. Because once you have that, no one can take it from you. A small girl in the front row raised her hand. "What if they hit you first?" Mia thought of Jake's taser, of Ashley's smug smile, of the boiler room's concrete floor. "Then you hit back harder," she said. "But first, you tell someone. You report it. You make sure everyone knows." The bell rang, signaling the end of orientation. As the freshmen filed out, several stopped to thank Mia or ask questions. One boy, barely taller than the podium, lingered until they were alone. "My brother said this school eats freshmen alive," he whispered. Mia crouched to his eye level. "What's your name?" "Ethan." "Well, Ethan," Mia said, "your brother's wrong. Because this year, we're changing the menu." And for the first time, she actually believed it. The first incident report came in during second period. Mia was sitting in chemistry when the intercom crackled to life, summoning Jake Mercer to the principal's office. Head swiveled toward him as he stood, his heeled jaw clenched tight. He slammed his textbook shut hard enough to make the beakers rattle before storming out. Jason passed Mia a note under the lab table. Asterisk, he got reported for shoving a freshman in the hall. Dr. Wright's making an example of him. Asterisk. Mia folded the note into tiny squares. She should have felt satisfied. Justice served. The system working as intended. Instead, a cold knot formed in her stomach. Jake wasn't the type to take this lying down. The retaliation came at lunch. Mia was halfway through her sandwich when the cafeteria doors burst open. Jake and 3 of his football teammates marched in, their Letterman jackets like uniforms of war. They made straight for the table where Marcus Chen sat alone, his nose buried in a book. Jake snatched the book away. "What's this? Brave New World? How fitting." Marcus reached for it. "Give it back." "Or what?" Jake held it just out of reach, grinning as Marcus stood. "You gonna report me, brave boy?" The cafeteria had gone dead silent. Every eye was glued to the confrontation, forks hovering mid-bite, conversations frozen mid-sentence. Mia stood so fast her chair screeched. Before she could move, Dr. Wright's voice cut through the tension. "Mr. Mercer, my office." Now. The principal stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. Jake's smirk faltered, but he tossed Marcus's book on the floor before sauntering toward her. As soon as they were gone, the cafeteria exploded in whispers. Snitch! Thought they were done with this crap. Mia's little club won't last. Jason appeared at Mia's elbow. This is bad. She watched Marcus pick up his book with shaking hands. The spine now cracked. It's just starting. The task force meeting that afternoon was tense. Dr. Wright had suspended Jake for 3 days, a slap on the wrist compared to Mia's punishment for fighting back. Letitia slammed her notebook down. They're testing us, seeing how far they can push before we break. Marcus, usually quiet, spoke up. It's working. No one's used the reporting system since lunch. Jason scrolled through his phone. Social media's blowing up. Half the school's calling Marcus a rat. Mia studied the incident reports from the past week. 3 legitimate complaints buried under 20 false ones. The system was being weaponized, just like everything else. Dr. Wright sighed. We knew there'd be growing pains. This isn't growing pains, Mia said. It's mutiny. The principal's phone buzzed. She read the message, her lips thinning. Jake's father is here, threatening to sue unless we rescind the suspension. She stood. I need to handle this. Keep brainstorming solutions. After she left, the room dissolved into arguments. We need harsher punishments. We need to educate. We need to. Mia tuned them out, staring at the whiteboard covered in their carefully laid plans. All the policies in the world couldn't change one simple truth. Power wasn't given. It was taken. She stood and picked up a marker. Here's what we're going to do. The next morning, Ridgewood High woke to a revolution. Overnight, the school had been papered with printed screenshots, group chats where Jake and his friends planned harassment campaigns, photos of vandalized lockers, even recordings of teachers dismissing bullying complaints. Jason had hacked together an anonymous submission form, and the responses had poured in. Years of pent-up grievances spilled across every available surface, turning the hallways into a gallery of truth. Mia arrived early to watch the chaos unfold. Students clustered around the displays, their shock giving way to anger, then solidarity. The football team's locker room was particularly damning. Decades of hazing rituals laid bare for all to see. Jake arrived to find his face plastered beside his own hateful words. He tore the papers down, but it was too late. The evidence was everywhere, undeniable. Dr. Wright found Mia by her locker. This was your doing. Mia met her gaze evenly. You wanted change. The principal exhaled through her nose. I can't condone vigilante justice, and I can't condone looking the other way. For a long moment, they stood at an impasse. Then Dr. Wright did something unexpected. She smiled. Just promise me next time, you'll run it by me first. Mia returned the smile. No promises. The fallout was swift. Jake was suspended indefinitely pending investigation. 2 teachers were placed on administrative leave for negligence. The school board announced a complete overhaul of disciplinary policies. But the real victory came at lunch, when Marcus Chen sat at the football team's usual table, and was joined by a steady stream of students who'd spent years living in fear. Mia watched from across the cafeteria as the social order reshaped itself in real time. Jason slid into the seat beside her, his eyes bright. Think it'll last? Mia took a bite of her apple. Not without a fight. But for the first time, she knew they stood a chance. The first snow of winter dusted Ridgewood High's campus in a thin layer of white as Mia walked to school, her breath forming clouds in the crisp morning air. 2 weeks had passed since the hallway revolution, and the school felt different. Lighter somehow, as if a collective breath had been released. She spotted Marcus Chen at the front entrance, no longer slinking along the walls but standing tall as he held the door open for a group of freshmen. One of them, the small boy named Ethan from orientation, grinned up at Marcus like he was some kind of superhero. Morning, Marcus said as Mia approached. His stutter had lessened noticeably since the football team's fall from grace. Mia nodded. They treating you okay? Marcus glanced at the freshmen scampering inside. Better. Still some dirty looks, but... He shrugged. Can't win 'em all. The bell rang, cutting their conversation short. Mia headed to her locker, noting how the usual clusters of students had shifted. The football players still dominated their corner, but their numbers had dwindled, their laughter more subdued. Meanwhile, the library was packed every period, the chess club had doubled in size, and Jason's anti-bullying Instagram now had more followers than the school's official account. Change was happening. Slowly, unevenly, but undeniably. The task force meeting that afternoon was standing room only. What had started as 5 students now included nearly 20. Freshmen emboldened by the new climate, upperclassmen tired of the old regime, even a couple of former bullies looking for redemption. Letitia was mid-report when the door opened. Every head turned as Jake Mercer stepped inside. The room went dead silent. Jake looked different. No Letterman jacket, his usual cocky swagger replaced by something more tentative. A jagged scar still marked where Mia had broken his jaw. Jason stood abruptly. "You lost." Jake ignored him, his eyes finding Mia. "I want in." A dozen voices erupted at once. "You've got to be kidding. After everything you've done. Who does he think?" Mia held up a hand. The room quieted. "Why?" she asked. Jake's throat worked as he swallowed. "Because I'm tired." He looked around at the faces, many bearing scars he'd helped inflict. "And because I don't want to be that guy anymore." No one spoke. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Mia studied him, the defensive hunch of his shoulders, the way his fingers worried at his scar. She'd seen that look before, on her father's teammates after particularly brutal missions. The look of someone who'd finally seen their own reflection and didn't like what stared back. "Prove it," she said. Jake blinked. "How?" "Public apology. Starting with Marcus." A murmur rippled through the room. Jake's jaw tensed, but he nodded. "Okay." Letitia scoffed. "And what? We just forgive him? After everything?" Mia turned to Marcus. "Your call." Marcus studied Jake for a long moment before speaking. "Apologize to everyone you've hurt. Mean it. Then we'll see." The tension in the room eased slightly. Jake nodded again, more firmly this time, before turning to leave. At the door he paused. "Thank you." When he was gone, the room erupted in debate. "Can't trust him. People can change." "What about accountability?" Mia let them argue. Change was messy. Healing wasn't linear. She'd learned that from years of watching her father's team struggle with the aftermath of war. Eventually, Jason leaned over. "You really think he's serious?" Mia watched the snow begin to fall outside the window. "We'll find out." The apology came the next morning over the school's PA system. Jake's voice crackled through every classroom, halting but sincere, listing names and specific incidents. When he got to Marcus's name, his voice broke. "And I'm sorry for making you feel small so I could feel big." The school held its collective breath. Then, in room 214, Marcus Chen stood up and walked out of class. The teacher didn't stop him. Neither did anyone else as he made his way to the principal's office where Jake was speaking. Security footage later showed what happened next. Marcus offering Jake a handshake. Jake taking it, then pulling Marcus into a hug. Both boys crying. The image went viral before lunch. That afternoon, Mia found Jake sitting alone on the bleachers, staring at the empty football field. Snowflakes dusted his hair as she sat beside him. "You meant it," she said. Jake nodded. "My dad's pissed. Says I'm betraying the family name." He picked at the peeling paint on the bench. His father was a bully. His grandfather too. Guess he thought it was tradition. Mia thought of her own father's lessons. The ones about honor, about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Some traditions deserve to die. They sat in silence as the snow fell harder, the field turning from green to white. Finally, Jake spoke again. "I want to help. For real." He met Mia's eyes. "Where do we start?" Mia smiled. "Welcome to the team." The fluorescent lights of the gymnasium buzzed overhead as Mia adjusted the microphone stand. The bleachers were packed with students, teachers, and, to her surprise, several local reporters. What had started as a simple assembly to announce new anti-bullying initiatives had turned into something resembling a press conference. Jason fidgeted beside her, his fingers flying over his phone. Channel 5 just tweeted they're coming. This is bigger than we thought. Mia glanced at the side door where Jake stood with Marcus and Letitia. The former bully looked pale under his tan, his usual swagger replaced by nervous energy. He kept running a hand through his hair, the motion jerky and uncharacteristic. "You ready for this?" Mia asked as she joined them. Jake exhaled sharply. "Do I have a choice?" Marcus clapped him on the shoulder, a gesture that would have been unthinkable 2 months ago. "Just say what you told us. They'll listen." Dr. Wright approached, her heels clicking against the gym floor. "We're starting in 5. Mia, you're up first." The noise in the gym rose to a dull roar as Mia took the podium. The microphone screeched feedback before settling into an uneasy hum. "My name is Mia Carter," she began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. 2 months ago, I walked into the school expecting another year of keeping my head down and surviving. She paused, scanning the crowd. What I found was a system designed to protect the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. A murmur rippled through the audience. Several teachers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "But systems can change," Mia continued. "People can change." She gestured to Jake. "This is Jake Mercer. Some of you know him as the star quarterback. Others know him as their bully. Today, he's here to tell you something important." The room held its breath as Jake approached the mic. His hands shook visibly as he unfolded a sheet of paper. I've been an asshole." His voice cracked on the admission. "For years, I made people's lives miserable because I could. Because no one stopped me." He looked up, his gaze finding Marcus in the front row. "I thought it made me strong. It just made me weak." A pin could have dropped in the silence that followed. Jake went on to detail specific incidents. Locker room hazing, stolen homework, the time he pantsed a freshman in the cafeteria and laughed as the kid ran out crying. With each confession, the air in the room grew heavier. "But the worst part?" Jake crumpled the paper in his fist. "I knew it was wrong. I just didn't care." The raw honesty hung in the air like smoke. Then, from the back of the gym, someone started clapping. Slowly, others joined. First Marcus, then Letitia, then a wave of students Mia didn't even know. By the time Jake stepped back from the podium, the applause was deafening. Dr. Wright took the mic next, outlining the new policies: peer mediation, mandatory empathy training, a complete overhaul of the disciplinary code. But Mia barely heard her. Because sitting in the back row, arms crossed and face unreadable, was Ashley. And she did not look happy. The backlash began that afternoon. Mia was collecting feedback forms after the assembly when the first shout echoed down the hallway. "Traitor!" She turned to see Ashley's friend Danielle pointing at Jake, her face twisted in rage. "You sold us out for some military bitch and her pet losers." Jake didn't rise to the bait. "It's over, Danny. The game's changed." Danielle's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "Oh, it's not over." She leaned in close, her whisper carrying. "Ashley's got plans for you. For all of you." Then she was gone, leaving behind the faint scent of cheap perfume and threat. Jason materialized at Mia's elbow. "That can't be good." Mia watched Danielle disappear around the corner. "We need to find out what they're planning." The answer came sooner than expected. That night, Mia's phone buzzed with an emergency task force alert. Jason had hacked into a private Snapchat group, his words, not hers, and found screenshots of Ashley's latest scheme, a coordinated campaign to discredit the anti-bullying movement. Fake reports of task force members bullying others. Doctored photos of Mia and Jake looking intimate. Plans to stage a hate crime against Ashley herself. Mia scrolled through the evidence, her stomach churning. It was clever, she had to admit. Attack the credibility of the reformers, paint themselves as victims, turn public opinion back in their favor. Her father's voice echoed in her head. The most dangerous enemy is one with nothing left to lose. Ashley's social empire was crumbling, and she was lashing out. The trap sprung the next morning. Mia arrived to find the school abuzz with rumors. Overnight, someone had vandalized Ashley's locker with slurs and threats. Security footage was mysteriously corrupted. And Ashley, ever the actress, was holding court in the cafeteria with tears in her eyes and a bruise, makeup Mia suspected, on her cheek. Who would do this? Ashley sniffled to a crowd of sympathetic onlookers. I just want to feel safe at school again. Jake, watching from the periphery, muttered, she's good. Mia had to agree. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Ashley positioning herself as the victim of the very system she'd once exploited. The principal's office was inundated with concerned parents by lunchtime. The school board called an emergency meeting. And the local news, always hungry for drama, ran with the headline, Anti-Bullying Initiative Backfires? Dr. Wright pulled Mia aside after last period. We need proof it's a setup. Mia nodded. We're working on it. The break came from an unexpected source. Ethan, the tiny freshman Mia had mentored, slipped her a note during study hall. Asterisk saw Danielle messing with Ashley's locker last night. I took video. Asterisk. Mia's heart raced as she watched the shaky cell phone footage. Danielle spray painting the slurs, Ashley handing her the makeup to fake the bruise, both girls giggling like it was all some big joke. Jason nearly vibrated with excitement when she showed him. This is gold. We can. Not yet, Mia interrupted. We need to catch them in the act. Because exposing Ashley now would just make her double down. But letting her dig her own grave? That was justice. The opportunity came at Friday's pep rally. Ashley took the stage to give a tearful speech about healing and moving forward. The crowd ate it up, their murmurs of support growing louder with every fake sniffle. Then Mia stood up. I have a question, she called, her voice cutting through the auditorium. If you're so scared of bullies, why were you laughing while vandalizing your own locker? Ashley froze. What? Mia nodded to Jason, who queued up the video on the overhead projector. The entire school watched in stunned silence as Ashley's lies played out in high definition. The color drained from Ashley's face. That's doctored. Mia's framing me because she's jealous. But the damage was done. The crowd's sympathy curdled into outrage as realization dawned. Dr. Wright took the mic, her voice steely. My office. Now. As Ashley was led away, the auditorium erupted in chatter. Mia caught snippets. I can't believe. All this time. She played us. Jake shook his head in disbelief. It's really over. Mia watched Ashley disappear through the doors. Her perfect facade finally shattered. No, she corrected. Now it's over. The Monday after Ashley's exposure dawned cold and quiet. A thin layer of frost coated the school grounds as Mia walked up the front steps, her breath visible in the crisp morning air. The usual pre-class chatter was absent. Students moved through the halls in hushed clusters, their conversations dying as she passed. Something had shifted. Jason intercepted her at her locker, his eyes wide behind his glasses. You're not going to believe this. He thrust his phone at her. The screen showed Ashley's Instagram account. Or rather, what used to be Ashley's account. The bio now read, former Ridgewood student, and all photos had been scrubbed. Transferred? Mia asked, handing the phone back. Overnight. Rumor is her parents pulled her before the school board could vote on expulsion. Jason adjusted his glasses, his voice dropping. Danielle and Tiffany too. Mia turned the combination on her locker. The metallic clicks echoed in the unusually quiet hallway. Anyone heard from them? Not a peep. It's like they vanished. The first bell rang, scattering students to class. Mia took her seat in English, noting the empty desks where Ashley's crew usually sat. Even the teacher seemed unsettled, her lesson on Shakespeare lacking its usual vigor. Halfway through class, the intercom crackled to life. Mia Carter, please report to the principal's office. Every head swiveled in her direction. Jason mouthed, what did you do? As she gathered her things. Dr. Wright's office smelled of coffee and lemon cleaner. The principal sat behind her desk, her expression unreadable as Mia entered. Close the door, she said. Mia obeyed, taking the offered seat. The principal studied her for a long moment before speaking. The school board met last night. After reviewing the evidence, they've decided to implement your task force's recommendations district-wide. Mia blinked. All of them. Every last one. Dr. Wright leaned forward. They're also considering making Ridgewood a pilot school for a new state anti-bullying initiative. She paused. They want you to speak at the press conference. The weight of the request settled over Mia like a physical thing. She thought of all the schools, all the students still trapped in the same cycle she'd just broken. When? Friday. The principal's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back to Mia. There's something else. A reporter from the Washington Post wants to interview you. They're calling this the Ridgewood Revolution. The term felt too grandiose, too neat for the messy reality of locker room fights and whispered threats. Mia opened her mouth to say so when a knock interrupted them. Jake Mercer stood in the doorway, his usual confidence replaced by something more tentative. Sorry to interrupt. I needed to say something. Dr. Wright gestured him in. Jake remained standing, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. My dad pulled some strings, he said without preamble. Got me an early admission to Penn State. I leave after winter break. Mia studied his face, the faint scar on his jaw, the dark circles under his eyes. You running away? Jake's throat worked as he swallowed, trying to start over. He met her gaze. I just wanted to thank you for not giving up on me when everyone else did. The raw honesty in his voice filled the small office. Dr. Wright discreetly busied herself with paperwork. Mia stood, offering her hand. Good luck, Jake. He took it, then surprised her by pulling her into a brief hug. Take care of this place for me, okay? Then he was gone, leaving behind the faint scent of cheap cologne and second chances. The task force meeting that afternoon was standing room only. News of the district-wide changes had spread, and students Mia barely knew packed the library, eager to join the movement. Letitia was leading a discussion on peer mediation when Marcus slipped into the seat beside Mia. Got a minute? He asked quietly. They stepped into the hallway, the muffled sounds of the meeting fading behind them. Marcus leaned against the lockers, his posture more relaxed than Mia had ever seen. I applied to Columbia, he said. Early decision. Mia raised an eyebrow. Journalism. Marcus nodded. Figured I'd put all this drama to good use. He hesitated. They accepted me this morning. The news shouldn't have stung, but it did. A sharp pang of loss beneath her ribs. First Jake, now Marcus. The team was scattering. Mia forced a smile. Congratulations. Marcus studied her face. You okay? Just. She gestured vaguely. What happens to all this when everyone leaves? Marcus followed her gaze to the packed library, to the students scribbling notes and debating policy. It keeps going, because you started something bigger than any one person. He nudged her shoulder. Even you caught her. The bell rang, signaling the end of the meeting. Students spilled into the hallway, their chatter bright with possibility. Mia watched them go, the weight on her shoulders lighter than it had been in months. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe this was just the beginning. The press conference on Friday was everything Mia hated. Cameras, microphones, too many eyes watching her every move. She stood at the podium beside Dr. Wright and the school board president, her palms sweating against the prepared speech. The crowd stretched farther than she'd expected. Students, teachers, parents, reporters from as far away as Chicago. Even her father stood in the back, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Mia took a deep breath and began. 6 months ago, I walked into Ridgewood High expecting to survive another year. Her voice carried clearly through the speakers. What I found was a system designed to protect bullies and silence victims. The crowd murmured in agreement. But systems can change, Mia continued. People can change. What happened at Ridgewood wasn't a revolution, it was a wake-up call. She looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar, most not. Because every school has a Jake Mercer. Every school has an Ashley. And every student deserves to feel safe in their own hallway. The applause started slowly, then built to a roar. Camera flashes popped like fireworks. Dr. Wright squeezed Mia's shoulder as the school board president took the mic, droning on about policy changes and district initiatives. Mia tuned him out, her eyes finding her father in the crowd. The faintest hint of a smile tugged at his lips, the closest he came to public praise. Later, after the speeches ended and the crowd dispersed, Darius Carter found his daughter by the trophy case, staring at the gleaming football awards with a thoughtful expression. "Proud of you, kid," he said simply. Mia leaned into his side. "Just for a moment. We did good, huh?" Her father followed her gaze to the trophies, to the empty hallways beyond. "You changed the game." And as Mia watched the last of the reporters pack up their equipment, as students lingered in clusters talking excitedly about the future, she realized he was right. The war wasn't won. Wars like this never really were, but the battlefield had shifted. And that was enough. The first day back from winter break smelled of fresh paint and floor wax. Mia ran her fingers along the newly repaired locker, the one Ashley's crew had vandalized months ago, noting how the metal shone under the fluorescent lights. The school felt different, lighter somehow, as if the very air had been scrubbed clean of its toxicity. Jason appeared at her elbow, his glasses fogged from the cold outside. "You see the new mural?" He led her to the main hallway where a vibrant painting now covered what had once been a blank wall. The design showed a phoenix rising from flames, its wings spread protectively over a diverse group of students. At the bottom, in bold letters, it read, "Ridgewood Rising." Letitia stood back admiring her work, paint still smudged on her jeans. "Took all break to finish," she said when she spotted them. Mia studied the intricate details, the way each student's face seemed to tell a story, the careful brushstrokes that made the phoenix feathers look almost real. "It's perfect." Letitia beamed. "Wait till you see the library." They finally cleared out all those moldy old yearbooks and made space for the mentorship center. The changes were everywhere Mia looked. Newly painted safe space signs in every classroom, suggestion boxes bolted to the walls at regular intervals. Even the security guards' uniforms had been updated to look less intimidating. Ridgewood High was rebranding itself, inside and out. The task force meeting that afternoon had a different energy. With Jake gone and Marcus preparing for Columbia, the dynamic had shifted. Fresh faces filled the chairs, mostly freshmen and sophomores who'd been inspired by the changes. Ethan, the tiny freshman Mia had mentored, sat front and center, his notebook already open. "I've been compiling suggestions from the underclassmen," he said, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Top request is more teacher training on spotting covert bullying." Mia exchanged glances with Jason. The kid had come a long way from the terrified boys she'd met at orientation. Letitia took charge of the meeting with an ease that surprised no one. "Okay, first order of business, selecting next year's leadership." She turned to Mia. "Any nominations?" Mia didn't hesitate. Ethan for president. Sarah Chen for vice president. The room murmured in agreement. Ethan's eyes widened behind his glasses. "Me? But I'm just a freshman." "Exactly," Mia said. "This needs to outlast all of us." As the meeting progressed, discussing spring initiatives, planning the end-of-year assembly, Mia found herself watching more than participating. This was what sustainability looked like. Not a single leader, but a movement. Her father noticed the change that night over dinner. "You're quiet," he observed between bites of meatloaf. Mia pushed her peas around the plate. "Just thinking. About what comes next." She looked up. "For me, I mean." Darius set his fork down with deliberate care. "You got plans?" Mia had been avoiding this conversation, but the words came easier than she'd expected. "I've been talking to Marcus." "About Columbia." Her father's eyebrows rose. "That's a good school. His journalism professor knows someone in the Veterans Advocacy Program." Mia took a deep breath. "I was thinking about applying. Using what I learned here to help military families." The silence stretched as her father processed this. Then, to her surprise, he smiled, a real, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Your mother would be proud." The mention of her mom, gone 6 years now, hit Mia square in the chest. She blinked against the sudden sting in her eyes. "Yeah." Darius reached across the table, squeezing her hand, a rare display of affection. "Damn right." Spring arrived with a burst of color and activity. The task force launched a peer mentorship program pairing upperclassmen with incoming freshmen. The school board approved funding for a full-time counselor specializing in bullying prevention. Even the teachers seemed reinvigorated, their lessons peppered with discussions about empathy and accountability. Mia found herself with unexpected free time as the underclassmen took on more responsibility. She used it to walk the halls, observing the subtle shifts, how the football players now ate lunch with the chess club, how the cheerleaders had started a tutoring program, how the once rigid social hierarchies had blurred into something more fluid. Jason caught her watching during one such walk. "Feels weird, doesn't it?" he asked, falling into step beside her. "Not having to fight every day." Mia nodded. "Good weird." They stopped by the main office, where a new display case showcased the task force's accomplishments. News clippings, photos from the assembly, even the original petition that had started it all. Jason nudged her shoulder. "We did that." Mia studied their reflections superimposed over the display. Two kids who'd refused to accept the status quo. "Yeah," she said softly. "We did." Graduation snuck up faster than Mia expected. One minute she was helping Ethan prepare for his first solo task force meeting. The next she was standing in a cap and gown, listening to Dr. Wright deliver the commencement speech. "And as we send these remarkable young adults into the world," the principal was saying, "let us remember the lessons they've taught us about courage, about justice, about the power of standing up for what's right." Mia tuned out the rest, her gaze drifting over the crowd. Her father sat front and center, his posture rigid even in civilian clothes. Jason's parents were snapping photos a few rows back. Even Marcus had come home from Columbia for the occasion, his press pass dangling around his neck. Then Dr. Wright said something that snapped Mia's attention back. "And so it's my great honor to announce the creation of the Mia Carter Award for Social Justice, to be given annually to the student who best exemplifies." The applause drowned out the rest. Mia's face burned as every head turned her way. Jason grinned at her from the stage. He'd known about this, the traitor, while Ethan and the other underclassmen cheered loudest of all. When the ceremony ended and the crowd surged forward, Mia found herself surrounded. Freshmen asked for autographs. Parents thanked her for making the school safer. Reporters peppered her with questions about her plans. Through it all, her father waited patiently at the edge of the chaos, his eyes shining with something suspiciously like pride. Mia fought her way to him, the diploma clutched tight in her hand. "So," she said when she finally reached him. "What now?" Darius Carter surveyed the crowd, the laughing students, the proud teachers, the school that had been transformed, before looking down at his daughter. "Now," he said simply, "you changed the world." And for the first time, Mia believed she just might. 5 years later, the scent of fresh wax and disinfectant hit Mia the moment she stepped through Ridgewood High's front doors. The smells were the same, but nearly everything else had changed. The security guard, a new face, nodded as she signed the visitor log. "Here for the dedication?" Mia smiled. "Something like that." She walked slowly down the main hallway, her heels clicking against the polished linoleum. The mural Letitia had painted still dominated the west wall, though someone had added new faces to the crowd beneath the phoenix's wings. The safe space stickers on classroom doors had been replaced with sleeker versions, and the suggestion boxes now had digital screens displaying real-time updates. But the biggest change was the plaque outside the principal's office. The Mia Carter Mentorship Center, dedicated to fostering courage and compassion. "Took you long enough." Mia turned to find Jason leaning against a locker, his once scrawny frame now filled out beneath a well-tailored suit. The glasses were the same, though, thick-framed and slightly askew. "You clean up nice," she said, pulling him into a hug. Jason adjusted his glasses. "Tech startup life. Turns out investors don't take you seriously in graphic tees." He nodded toward the plaque. "Nervous?" Mia exhaled slowly. "A little." The past 5 years had been a whirlwind. Columbia, her veterans advocacy work, the book deal that unexpectedly catapulted her story onto bestseller lists. But this felt different. A familiar voice echoed down the hall. "If you two are done reminiscing, we've got a ceremony to start." Dr. Wright, now Superintendent Wright, stood with her arms crossed, her smile belying the stern tone. The lines around her eyes had deepened, but her presence was as commanding as ever. The auditorium was packed when they entered. Students filled the bleachers, their chatter dying as the lights dimmed. Mia recognized a few faces, teachers who'd stayed, younger siblings of classmates, but most were strangers. That was the point, she reminded herself. The next generation. Superintendent Wright took the podium. 5 years ago, Ridgewood High underwent a transformation. Mia tuned out the familiar speech, her eyes scanning the crowd until she found Ethan. No longer the tiny freshman, but a broad-shouldered senior sitting with the current task force members. He caught her eye and grinned. "And so it's my great honor to welcome back the woman who started it all," Wright concluded. "Mia Carter." The applause was deafening as Mia approached the mic. She waited for it to die down before speaking. "When I first came to Ridgewood, I thought I was alone." Her voice carried easily in the hushed room. "I thought the only way to survive was to fight. But I was wrong." She made eye contact with Ethan, with the current task force members, with the wide-eyed freshman in the front row. "Real strength isn't in throwing punches. It's in standing up, for yourself, for others, for what's right, even when you're scared." She smiled. "And you're never as alone as you think." The ceremony ended with a ribbon cutting outside the newly renovated mentorship center. As cameras flashed and reporters called questions, Mia found herself face-to-face with a small girl lingering at the back of the crowd. "You're her, aren't you?" the girl whispered. "The one who changed everything." Mia crouched to her level. "What's your name?" "Lily." The girl twisted the hem of her shirt. "I start here next year." Mia recognized the fear in her eyes. The same fear she'd carried on her own first day. She reached into her bag and pulled out a copy of her book. Inside, she scribbled, "*for Lily, the bravest person in the room. Mia*. As she handed it over, something occurred to her. "You know, we have a great mentorship program here. Upperclassmen look out for the new kids." Lily clutched the book to her chest. "Really? Really?" Mia stood, offering her hand. "Want to meet some of them?" The girl hesitated, then slipped her small hand into Mia's. Together, they walked toward the mentorship center, where a new group of leaders waited to begin their work. The circle, Mia realized, remained unbroken.